What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Jam with Jock. I was watching this awesome video the other day made by Reverb, and if you're not familiar with their work, they're just a company that has a resale website for synthesizers, which you can buy secondhand and also brand new. And they also have awesome YouTube videos where they reconstruct old tracks, also show off their synthesizers. And in this particular video, they showed how Pink Floyd used a reverse technique to make some awesome psychedelic drums. Now, they did this with a real drum kit and they showed how they would have done it back in the day, but I thought it would be really cool to show how we can do it today using our DAW and also just some samples rather than having an acoustic drummer play. So I'll leave a link in the description to that video. I definitely recommend going to check it out. And there's also some free samples from that video that they made, which you can then use for this video that we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and get stuck into it. So I have a kick, snare, hi-hat, and ride bell loaded up already. And I've just got a little bit of reverb on the ride bells just so it rings out a little bit more. But other than that, there's no processing on anything. On the group though, I have an EQ to take away some of that low end because a lot of these drums are pretty hi-fi and Pink Floyd relied heavily on their bass to get those sub frequencies. So I would definitely recommend putting an EQ on the drum rack after everything and then cutting it at about 50 Hertz. And also what I would recommend is having some sort of vinyl effects crackle in the background. And if you've seen my videos before, you know this is on my default set every time. And that's just going to give us an awesome old school texture that's going to make the sound feel like it's coming through tape. We're also going to set the tempo of the track to 60 beats per minute. You can also do 120 if you want to do halftime, but I'm just going to stick for 60 for the meantime. And we'll go ahead and create a MIDI clip by pressing Command-Shift-M. Just an important point to make before I start, I'm going to be applying a groove to it. And my favorite in particular that I've found has worked for this is if we go into rock and then we choose this rock tight light swung 16ths. Again, you can choose whatever you want, or you can even draw it in manually if you want to play it in by ear and not have any groove. That's totally fine as well. So, but I'm going to be applying this swing right here. All right, so happy with that kick and snare for the time being. We're just going to put the ride in now because that's definitely one of the most important sounds in the drums. And I've got the velocity down low on these at about 60. And the reason, as you can hear probably, as to why I've added this groove is some of these notes, I'm not even adjusting the velocity for, like especially this kick here. And the groove is actually changing that velocity and swing for me. So all I'm doing is just adding in notes and then I'm letting the groove do the work for me. If I press commit, pressing this button over here, you'll see what it's doing. So this kick that I was just talking about, it's made it, it's pushed it off the grid and it's also lowered the velocity for me. So that's definitely why I just like using a groove for drums and just letting it do all the work for me. I'm just going to add in some snares that are off the grid to try and emphasize the groove. Right, so as you can hear, it's a fairly simple loop, and that's exactly what we're after. Nick Mason, the Pink Floyd drummer, didn't overdo the drums, and I think that's what makes Pink Floyd sound. It's just he's doing exactly what needs to be played and keeping it simple. Like I said as well, you can create any drums you want. I just would recommend having the ride cymbals and also some vinyl effects playing. But the kick and snare, you can have that and the groove to whatever is your taste. Now here's where we're going to really start getting that Pink Floyd sound. So you're just going to grab a return track and you just want a reverb that has a lot of decay to it. So I'm using UAD's reverb and I've got a preset called gunshot snare, and obviously that's going to have a lot of decay. And the reason why the decay is going to be great is because then it's going to have a longer tail for the reverb to be reversing with. And you'll understand what I mean by that as we get on with it. So we've got a reverb with a long tail, and we're going to turn our return track, which is mine's on A. We're going to turn that fully wet, and then we're going to create an audio track. And then we're going to press our audio in coming from that return track down here at A. We're going to hit record. Right. Record. Doesn't sound too spectacular at the moment, but we'll make it work. So what you want to do is you really want to import it to consolidate that reverb loop. So when it's reversed, it's not longer than the original one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reverse this. So double click on this and then hit reverse. All right. So we'll hear how that sounds together. I'll just turn it down a little bit and make sure you turn your reverb off on the return track. I might try and put this is the snare here in reverse. So I wouldn't mind having the snare, because the snare hits here at 1.2. So if I have this, it might swoosh up to the snare a bit more. I'll just hear how that sounds. That's cool. A very important thing I forgot to mention is we're going to put an EQ on this reversed reverb, because like I was talking about at the start, there's not a lot of lower frequencies in the drums, and it's super hi-fi. So what we're going to do is we're going to, about 500 hertz, we're going to put an EQ on that reversed reverb, maybe 400. Oh, and then we're going to pan this hard to the left as well. And just to really make it sound like Pink Floyd, we're going to get that guitar slide in with those drums. So I've got a guitar preset here, Electric Mint. It's a VST. And I've also got Guitar Rig, which is an amplifier. And this setting, this preset that I've got on Analog Answers has some awesome psychedelic delays on it. So if I just press a note, it's very late, the delay, but you can hear it's just doing random things still. And I stopped pressing the note a while ago. Still going. So I'm just going to record in just me pressing 2 notes, and then I'm going to use my pitch bend on my MIDI controller to bend the sound. Alrighty. I just played an E and a C sharp. And then the great thing is, if you don't have a MIDI controller, that's totally fine, because as you can see, we've got this pitch bend MIDI control here. So just go from notes here, envelopes, and then you'll go down to MIDI control and then pitch bend. And you can draw that in for yourself if you don't have a MIDI controller with a pitch bend on it. And you can see here how awesome it sounds with that guitar rig. Alrighty, so all together now. So that's how I would go about trying to create a psychedelic drum loop in the style of Pink Floyd. And hopefully you've seen, with a few simple techniques like throwing a vinyl effects on and also reversing the reverb, you can also create a similar sound. I really hope that it encourages you to step outside of the box and to really get creative in your sounds by recording and reversing and resampling things. And hopefully it shows you just how easy it is to try and create something a little bit different. If you learned something new and you enjoyed the video, then I'd love if you can hit that like and subscribe button. And if there's any questions that you had about this video, then go ahead and drop them down below. I really appreciate you staying to the end of the video. And if you wanted to keep watching my videos and check out some of my latest uploads, then just go ahead and click up here. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.